Good afternoon, this is Brian Pallasch. I'm the Managing Director of Government Relations for ASCE, and we're here today to talk to you a little bit about what happened during this week's congressional and state elections.
So tell me, Brian, why is infrastructure a bipartisan issue, or is it a bipartisan issue?
Well, we think it's a bipartisan issue because there's really no Democratic roads or Republican bridges. Everyone uses the same infrastructure and it serves the economy. So without a good working infrastructure, we can't have a good economy.
Great. And so now that the election is over, for the American Society of Civil Engineers as a whole, as we welcome a new Congress, what are the goals?
Well, our goal is to pass comprehensive infrastructure legislation that starts to address the $2 trillion infrastructure investment gap that we've detailed pretty effectively using the report card as a tool to educate congressmen and senators. And so we're hopeful that we will get working on that right away as Congress begins.
Great. Now, do the results make it more likely for federal infrastructure investment or less likely?
Well, we think it's actually more likely, and this is the reason why. So we feel, if you look back in history at the last couple of times we've done substantive, significant infrastructure legislation, it's been when we've had bipartisan agreement to move forward. So if you think back to 1993, there was some work on some bipartisan legislation to raise the motor fuels tax. If you go all the way back into the 1980s, when President Reagan raised the gas tax, again, that was bipartisan, and we moved forward with that. So we think that this bipartisan Congress, if there is agreement that we want to move forward, that we'll be able to make that progress and actually put together a comprehensive infrastructure package.
Do you see after this the report card grades going up with the new infrastructure goals of this new Congress?
Well, that will take some time. I will say one of the things that we've learned with infrastructure is it doesn't change overnight. But if we can start getting the right levels of investment in infrastructure, we will start heading in the right direction on improving the grades. And we've seen that as we've done some of the state report cards, where we've seen states who have increased funding for infrastructure, and then a couple of years later will come back and do their next report card. And in fact, the grades do go up.
And speaking of states, how did the state ballot measures relating to transportation investment perform?
I think state ballot measures were a little bit more of a mixed bag during this election. We won probably our largest and biggest fight that we had, which was on Prop 6 in California. As most folks know, there was an attempt to repeal the 12-cent gas tax increase that was put in place last year in the state of California. That was a big campaign to ensure that we retained that 12-cent gas tax increase. That 12 cents equates to about $5 billion a year of transportation projects in the state. That actually passed. We won overwhelmingly. I don't want to say passed because the vote was no. So the goal was to vote no on 6, and in fact, 55% of Californians voted no. They wanted to keep their investment in transportation. A couple other states did some interesting things. Rhode Island did some bonds on water and schools. We saw in Hillsborough County in Florida, they did a ballot initiative to fix their roads and improve their transit systems. In Connecticut, they actually lockboxed their transportation funds, which means the state legislature and the governor can't move funds around. The funds that are raised for transportation have to be used for transportation, which is very important. Now it's important for all of us at ASCE and the members of ASCE to start moving forward and educating their new members of Congress and their current members of Congress, if they're coming back, that this is the time now to start working on infrastructure legislation, and it's time to move forward early in January and work on making infrastructure the #1 priority, and in fact moving a significant infrastructure package this year.